Shalom, shalom, and welcome to the White Rose Family Channel. My name is Symmanayah if you're tuning in for the first time. My brothers and sisters, there are those among us and those that we are familiar with that on a consistent basis influence what direction we take, which way we go. Some have taken on the title as a pastor, bishop, moray, priest. And even though we have these different titles, anyone or any individuals who affect which directions we go, which directions we take, are functioning as guides, whether we give them a title as guides or not. Guides define the influence that they have on us. Counsels, and I'm not talking about counsels, C-I-L-S. Those are like groups that provide some oversight. I'm talking about counsel as in seeking counsel from someone, going to a counselor to seek advice, a sense of direction, to better improve our way of life by helping us to think things through, pray things through. I want you, as we go through this title, to think about what does it influence you to go left, right, forward, or backwards, or to sit still. Who is influencing you? Who is providing counsel to you? Do you know that there are those who you trust and believe that gives out false witness against another because they neglected to vet and examine something thoroughly? They'll tell you, stay away from this person or that person. Don't believe this person or that person. If you get people who are saying that, just ask them why, how. What is it about that person that is wrong? You see, there are too many guides that's given instructions and they have not vetted things thoroughly, examined things thoroughly. Guides and counselors exist on a daily basis, my brothers and sisters. There are individuals who influence our path and provide advice, even for a moment. Each day is a starting point, my brothers and sisters, the ultimate beginning of which we should never forget. You see, we might not say I'm being guided. We might not say I don't go to anybody for counsel. But have you shared your story to a brother, a sister, or someone that gave you advice? Anyone giving advice acted, if but for a moment, as your counsel. Now, what you do with the content of what they've given you is up to you. Knowledge is a key factor for identifying set-apart guides and getting wise counsel, my brothers and sisters. Examine the following as I unpack this subject: guides and counsel. Proverbs 1:7, I speak of it often. The fear of Yahuah is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. So I say to you, O Yashar'al, when engaging a guide or going to someone for advice, let us question their knowledge. Let us question the origin of their instructions. And if anyone is reluctant to answer questions, is it possible they're demonstrating the actions of a fool? Because out of questions, out of seeking answers, comes wisdom and discipline. And when we fear Yahuah and pause and seek to discern what he has to say on the matter, it puts us in a position to receive wisdom and discipline and knowledge. The knowledge necessary to examine what is presented by a guide or a counsel. Proverbs 2:6 says this, for Yahuah gives wisdom, out of his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. My brothers and sisters, before I continue, I want us to make sure we have a mind to seek the Almighty Father. Seek to discern what he has for us, understand what he has for us. And in doing so, my brothers and sisters, take a look at Matthew 6:33 and 34. Matthew 6:33 and 34, it says, but seek first the reign of the Almighty One and his righteousness, and all these shall be added to you. Do not then worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow shall have its own worries. Each day has enough evil of itself. My brothers and sisters, the Almighty Father don't want us worrying, but let us be mindful he gave Noah a plan. Sometimes we move as a response to the plan that he outlays for us. And sometimes he asks us to move and leave everything behind. Noah received the plan. Lot did not. End times are upon us, my brothers and sisters. And there are many guides who will tell you to get to the continent. Africa, in my opinion, is the largest continent on this planet. Now, I may be mistaken there, but I will say this. Africa, the continent, has approximately 54 countries. And there are so many people trying to tell you, get out of Babylon, get out of Babylon. And they're telling you Babylon is just, Mystery Babylon is just the United States. They are sadly mistaken. There are guys that tell you to go just get out of Babylon, get to the continent. And there have been people who followed that direction, that guidance, and went to Egypt. Went to Kenya, some Tanzania, some Ghana, and various other parts of the continent of Africa. Do you know, my brothers and sisters, that in Genesis 26th chapter and Jeremiah, I believe the 44th chapter, Yahuah completely said, do not go back to Egypt. Do not go into Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim and Egypt are synonymous, mean the same, mean an area of bondage. So to tell someone to just go to the continent, that's poor guidance. And there are people that will tell you that South Saharan Africa or Ethiopia is the promised land, without looking for the origins of the footsteps of the nation of Yashar'al that was guided by Abba Yahuah, but not looking at the scriptures when it described that the promised land is between the Euphrates and the Nile. And they talk themselves out of receiving the truth because they say it's a desert, it's desolate. They talk themselves out of there because they think that the promised land that we who believe is between the Nile and the Euphrates, they believe oftentimes that people think Israel is just that little strip of land, that the state of Israel as we know it. But if Africa is larger than we expect, if you look up and research the size of Africa, you will see it's much larger than we think. Before you switch off, my brothers and sisters, think about this. How many landmass on maps that hide a particular landmass? If you look at when it talks about the continent of Africa, you'll see most depictions cut off what is known as the Middle East. And I submit to you, the Middle East, my brothers and sisters, that boot shape that you see on the map is part of Africa, Northeast Africa. But if you notice, people are wearing jewelry, images and everything, and they don't want to show that boot. They don't want to show that so-called Middle East. It was not always called the Middle East. And even to this day, now they're trying to say that the Middle East is Western Asia. Have you ever given thought to why is so much trouble being given to hide that specific piece of land? Could it be they're trying to hide the promised land? Could the narrative be that when Yahuah scattered us, we were stiff-necked people and rebellious? Could the narrative be that he caused the land to become desolate, a wilderness? Because Yashar'al was like, we ain't going anywhere. Could it be that he made the land a desert? Could it be that he brought famine that forced Yashar'al to move deeper into the continent of Africa, different parts of Africa? And now that we are coming to the time of him gathering us from the four corners of the earth, as it is written in Isaiah 11:12, for those who use the excuse not to accept the promised land because it's a wilderness or a desert, look again. In preparation for that return, do we now see the Middle East, even the Saharan desert, starting to turn green? Are we seeing attributes that can bring about milk and honey and livestock? So if we were convinced not to believe that's the promised land because it was a desert, think again. Look again. What is really the actual physical size of what is known as the Middle East, if the maps have it wrong? Yashar'al, Yashar'al, being gathered from the four corners of the earth, it will prove the true size beyond the maps that we see. We will witness the truth come out. We will witness who's giving guidance that is correct, who's providing counsel that is incorrect. Using words like, I've done a lot of research, I got receipts. Notwithstanding their receipts and their researches from books that man has printed. Some talk more about the books and the print and the letter than they do discerning what the Spirit of Yahuah has to say regarding a matter. So when it comes to guides and counsel, my brothers and sisters, those who are absent of praying and seeking to discern and vetting what's being said to them, think again whether you want them to be the guides and the counselors going forward. Yashar'al, we witness a lot about what is unfolding, but how many present what must be done? There are real-world actions that must come to be. This requires guides and counsel. Without knowledge, the work of guides and counsel could lead to much confusion. Without discerning the voice of Yahuah, brings about disruption, distractions, arguments. There are different ways we learn. One may believe we get our information through specific gates. Yes, my brothers and sisters, gates such as through our eyes, what we see influence us. Through our ears, by speaking. These things are gates, gateway to exchange of information and communication. And some people, because they know these gates exist, abuse these gates and present anything and everything for us to take in. These are the most widely promoted methods for obtaining knowledge. But look for more components for obtaining information as I continue. It's not just about what you see, hear, or what people are saying. Let's take a look, my brothers and sisters. It would be wise to identify priorities for learning and teaching. In other words, to take in the information that the guides present. Let us set priorities. Let us take our time and be prayerful, lest we fall into the status quo of distributing information. What is that status quo? Where people talk about the gates, the eyes, the ears, the mouth. But there's another thing that is being used, that people will use. We often tend to forget the position of our inward man. Consider the spiritual, mental, and psychological challenges we face and how they are components of our learning. See, if we just look at the mental and the psychological and don't realize the spiritual, then we may find ourselves victims of people saying, okay, I'm going to go the mental, the psychological route. I'm going to give you an example of that in a minute, my brothers and sisters. How, if we neglect the need to discern instructions and directions, it could be a bad thing. You see, my brothers and sisters, academics have embraced 4 different ways of learning. And you can see it. Google these words. Put it in the 4 major ways of learning. The academics, many of them believe visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is by demonstrating, by actually working through sensory perception and movement. So because there are those who, and I say academics, those who have learned this method in school or by someone who say these are the ways people learn, if they leave out the spirit, my brothers and sisters, they may be selling us a bag of goods. They may be saying this is the way, and they stopping too soon. Academics who focus more on the sciences will focus on mental and psychological means of spreading knowledge. This is dangerous, O Yashar'al. I would encourage a little research. Search the words for methods of learning. Also look up classical conditioning and operant conditioning. These are academic ways in which we are programmed to receive teachings and guidance and counsel. But I say to you, O Yashar'al, there's an inward man. There's a relationship between Abba, Yahuah, and us. Through his living word that comes in Yahusha's name, his spirit that comes in Yahusha's name, as it references in John 14:26. Be advised, brothers and sisters, there are leaders, mores, teachers, and influencers who are aware of the learning components that I just presented, and they use that as the method to teach and educate, absent of the need to learn how to discern. I label such individuals as academics. These tend to go the academic route and act as guides and counsel to the unlearned and the undiscerning. They think by taking big words or fluent words, mastering the art of convincing, that that's the way to go. Beyond the academic methods, shepherds, mores, bishops, deacons, priests, and other commonly known titles, beyond them is live communication from Abba Yahuah. Yes, we should always look first to discern the voice of the Almighty Yahuah, the voice of Yahuah coming to us, through his spirit, sent in Yahusha's name. For the name Yahusha represents the word of Yahuah. Consider the first chapter of John. Many struggle to discern and understand the order of service to the Almighty Yahuah. When we use the name Yahusha, it should be acknowledged that he, Yahuah, that his word is Yahusha. So when we use the name Yahusha, my brothers and sisters, we are talking about the word of Yahuah. There is no Trinity. Yashar'al, my brother, my sister. In the coming days, more and more brothers and sisters will be able to better understand that the word of Abba Yahuah is identified as Yahusha. The Almighty Yahuah is spirit, a consuming fire, the beginning and the end. And when we learn that Yahuah's methods for communicating with us is through his word and spirit, sent in Yahusha's name, When we understand that more clearly, many discoveries will emerge among us. Come, let us review some scriptures important to know regarding guide and counsel. Yashar'al, or Yashar'al. Do not take this subject for granted. Consider Deuteronomy 32, 45, and 46. Deuteronomy 32, 45, and 46 says, and this is the scripture version of Esau. And when Moshe ended speaking all these words to all Israel, he said to them, set your heart on the words which I warned you today, so that you command your children to guard to do all the words of this Torah. All the words. This is what Moshe is speaking to them. He goes on to say, my brothers and sisters, for it is not a worthless word for you, because it is your life. And by this word, you prolong your days on the soil which you pass over the Jordan to possess. The importance of living Torah, living instructions. Let us also look at Exodus chapter 18, verse 19. Exodus 18, 19. It is written, now listen to my voice. Listen to my voice. Let me counsel you, and the Almighty One be with you. Stand before the Almighty One for the people, and you shall bring to the matters to the Almighty One. There is emphasis on the voice. And prior to Yahusha walking among us, we know that Abba Yahuah's Spirit spoke to him through prophets and directly. He goes on to say, and you shall enlighten them concerning the laws of the Torah, and show them the way in which they should walk and work, which they do. But you yourself seek out from all the people able men who fear Yahuah, men of truth, hating unfair gain, and place these over them to be rulers and thousands of rulers, hundreds rulers of 50, rulers of 10. And he goes on, my brothers, to say, and they shall rightly rule the people at all times, and it shall be that they bring every great matter to you. But they themselves rightly rule every small matter. So make it lighter for yourself, for they shall bear with you. If you do this word, the Almighty One shall command you, then you shall be able to stand, and all this people also go to their place of peace. Emphasizing communication, righteous guidance. And I submit to you that included counseling. Take a look at Psalms 1:1. It says, blessed is the man who shall not walk in the counsel of the wrong, and shall not stand in the path of sinners, and shall not sit in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the Torah of Yahuah, and he meditates in his Torah day and night. There are people that would have you think that the Torah is just the first 5 books of Musa or Moses. This is not true. The Torah means instructions from Abba Yahuah. And throughout Scripture, Yahuah used us. His Spirit worked in us through his prophets, through his messengers, known as angels. But when Yahuah worked to present a message to us, whether it came through a prophet, a messenger, whether we witness Yahusha, the word of Yahuah manifest before us, or whether it was through the Spirit of Yahuah sent in Yahusha's name, I say to you, my brothers and sisters, this was all part of living instructions, living Torah. We're fascinated by the word Torah. And so many people will tell you it's just the first 5 books of Moshe. Ask them, what does Torah mean? And if it means just the 5 books of Moshe, what are the rest of the scriptures? Do we not receive instructions when these scriptures are made alive? How do we learn? How are we taught? Do we toss that and say it's not instructions? You see, sometimes people are so adamant. And see, the masses, the crowd want to say, oh yeah, you got to be about the Torah, the Torah. And then if you ask them, what do you mean by Torah? If they just say the first 5 books of Moshe, ask them what Torah means. And if they say instruction, then ask them what's the rest of the scriptures. And then even if you know the scriptures, if you study the scriptures, excuse me, from Genesis to Revelation, is that not instructions? And when someone understands the meaning of such instructions in their life, where did they get it from? When the Spirit makes alive, what is that if that's not the Spirit giving instructions to how to rightly discern and understand what is written? Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al, let us understand guides and counsel involve communication. Let us understand where such communication originates. What is influencing our direction? What is influence how we govern ourselves? Who's influencing us? Take a look at Psalms 33, 10, and 11, my brothers and sisters. Psalm 33, verse 10 and 11. It says, Yahuah brings the counsel of the nations to naught. He thwarts the plans of the peoples. The counsel of Yahuah stands forever. The plans of his heart to all generations. There's a difference. Let us learn to discern and be mindful of it. Psalm 73:24 says, you lead me by your counsel, and afterwards receive me unto esteem. After the counsel of Yahuah. Proverbs 1:29. Take a look at it, my brothers and sisters. It is written, because they hated knowledge and did not choose to fear Yahuah. We must fear Yahuah. That's the beginning of knowledge. That's the beginning of getting the things that will equip us to not follow after wrong guides and ill counsel, erroneous direction. Proverbs 1:30 and 31 says, they did not accept my counsel. They despised all my reproof. Therefore, let them eat the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own counsels. That's not a good thing, my brothers and sisters. Not at all. Yashar'al. Let me direct your attention to Proverbs 11:14. It says, without guidance the people fall, but in a great counselor there is safety. Counselor. Let us recognize and say a great counselor. Some translations will read, in a multitude of counselors. But it's not talking about just any old counsel. It's those who have demonstrated obedience to set apartness, those who have demonstrated the understanding of the living instructions of the Almighty Father, those who recognize and discern how to speak, how to guide, what to say. Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al, my brothers, my sisters, it would be wise to recognize how the scriptures, when made alive, equips us with what is needed for following guides and counsels, those led by the Almighty Father, those who seek him first. Take a look at John 14:26 that I mention often, my brothers and sisters. For many will say, I don't get this. That's not what I get out of it. But pray and watch. It says, the helper, the set-apart spirit whom the Father shall send in my name. This was Yahusha being quoted by John, writing. He shall teach you all, remind you all that I've said to you. There's the literal that occurred while he was with his taught ones. And there's the spiritual where this applies to us to this day, my brothers and sisters. That the Almighty Father sent his set-apart spirit. Soon and very soon we will understand the importance of lifting up the word of Yahuah. For it is by his word we will be drawn together to fulfill the final exodus, to fulfill the last days ahead of us. The set-apart spirit, teaching us, guiding us, reminding us. Take a look at John 16:13, my brothers and sisters. John 16:13 says, "But when he comes, the Spirit of truth, he shall guide you into all the truth. For he shall not speak from himself, but whatever he hears, he shall speak, and he shall announce to you what is to come." Yahusha was talking about himself coming to us as the word of Yahuah. The origins being from the spirit of Yahuah. And when he spoke to us, it was in the word. The method in which he communicated was in the word, his word, Yahusha. No Trinity, my brothers and sisters. Believe it or not, Yashar'al, people watch us. Do you know kids are looking at you, brothers and sisters are looking at you? When we go to work, when we step outside, people watch. They look at how we govern ourselves. They look at what we do. We are as guides and counsels in many ways, whether we walk around with a title or not. The actions that influence another to turn left, right, go forward, or backward are actions that can be described as coming from a guide. Giving advice, directly or indirectly, advising someone, this is the way I would handle things and stuff. Sometimes we give advice and don't realize we're giving advice. Do not be caught up to thinking it's just a matter of the title alone that represents guides or counsel in our lives. It's those whom we interact that influence our sense of direction, that influence how we govern ourselves, how we communicate with one another. Brothers and sisters, we must learn to recognize and accept the wrong and the right and know how to weigh it, dispel it, or embrace it. Recognize and accept the workings of the Spirit of Yahuah dwelling in us, through us, one towards another. So when we accept that this came wrong, we need to package it, identify it, execute judgment on it, and purge it from among us or come away from it. Guides and counsel. Yashar'al, Yashar'al. Who led you today? Who influenced your actions today? My brothers and sisters. Whether we see ourselves as guides or counsels or not, the Spirit of Abba Yahuah will move us to our assignments. He will speak through us, one towards another. He will speak through the pastors, the bishops, the teachers, some rather say moray. He will speak through the brother, the sister, the adult, or the child. From the least to the greatest, our Yahuah reserves the right to speak to us through whomever he chooses, however he chooses, and to what measurement he would instruct and direct. Yashar'al, oh Yashar'al, my brother, my sister, my family. Take a look at 2 Timothy 4:2. It tells us to proclaim the word, be urgent in season and out of season, convict, warn, appeal with all patience and teaching. Could that involve contributing towards guidance? Could that involve contributing advice, giving advice, whether we label it and package it as advice or counsel, whether we label it and package it as guiding someone? Do the actions demonstrate such? My brother, my sister, take a look at Luke 12:48 as I gradually come towards an end, my brothers and sisters. Luke 12:48 said, but he who did not know yet did what he yet did what deserved flogging shall be beaten with few, because he didn't know any better. But everyone to whom much is given, from him much shall be demanded. To whom much has been entrusted, from him much more shall be asked. You see, my brothers and sisters, the information that we learn, the stuff that we give out, that falls into the category of guiding someone or contributing towards their guidance, we're going to be held accountable. The advice we give, if we fail to study and pray and gain the knowledge, the wisdom, and the discipline from Abba Yahuah, we may find ourselves giving the wrong advice, the wrong counsel. Let us choose wisely. Let us examine all that is presented before us before we step into embracing guidance or counsel. Let us not be sucked in by the flurry of words that sound good or the flurry of receipts that are presented. Let us pray and seek to discern. And let us ask questions. You know, my brothers and sisters, there are some who will try to provide guidance in ways that are harmful. And I want you to know this, my brothers and sisters. If anyone is sharing with you a plan that maps out directions you should go, if anyone is giving you advice that tells you how you should govern yourself as you move along each day, ask as many questions as you can think of. If they are reluctant to hear those questions, come away from them. You see, my brothers and sisters, I have seen those who are unlearned, undiscerning, or those who want to be lifted up, too arrogant to tell you, I don't have the answer to that question. I don't know. They take on a posture, and they convince others if you're in a group setting. Case in point, let's say you listen to a brother speak or a sister speak, and you start asking questions. There are some that take on the posture, oh, you're a hater. And if it's a social media event or YouTube event, in the comments, they'll have the administrator boot you out. They'll say, you're a hater. Case in point, I listened to a YouTube video where they was talking about the promised land. And they was talking about South Africa. And they was talking about get some land, get out of Babylon, get out of America. And they was talking about go to South Africa. Then they talked about a couple of other areas next to South Africa within hours of one another. And they talked about that they had a plan, and it was a group of them that have a plan. But you know what, Yashar'al? When I asked the question of, is it a written plan that one can evaluate and examine? Crickets, no response. For whatever excuse one would want to bring, they ignored that. Another person asked a question. Can we see the work that's being done already? Crickets. You see, it's easy to say we got a plan, invest your money, come together. It's easy to boast that there are people leading and we got things going on. But there's no progress report that's written. There are no specific measurements. It's easy to say, let's come together in unity. But what are the thresholds? How many families can come together? It's easy to say, oh, you can get you a plot just like in America. Do we want to be like the heathen? Or do we want to be accommodating in a way where Yashar'al can be close proximity to one another and working together? And if they're emphasizing mostly money, talking about it takes money to do things, and they want you to go to South Africa, are you aware that BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and the X stands for South Africa, have begun to roll out what is called BRICS Pay, and a BRICS currency is being developed. They tested, they did a field test at the BRICS meeting. So the valuation of the BRICS currency versus the US dollar is going to create a challenge. So if they telling you get your money to them and they got leaders, I even heard the outspoken individual claim that, well, don't wait till we get all the land and we got the communities starting to develop and everything, and then all of a sudden you want to come now after we've done all the hard work. Trying to use psychological rhetoric to entice you to start investing. If you research, my brothers and sisters, there's a few initiatives that are crumbling where they're talking about get to the continent. There are a few initiatives. I heard a brother and his wife say, we're in Tanzania. We're not down in South Africa. And we asked, well, do you work together with the ones in South Africa? No. And see, I've learned to ask questions. If you believe Yashar'al is going to be gathered, why are you promoting actions that splinter us? See, if you just say go to the continent, then people are splintered throughout the continent. And if the continent of Africa, which I believe it is much greater than the geographic land of the United States, then that's scattering Yashar'al more. Hear me, O Yashar'al. True set-apart guides will rise up. Extreme humbling times will bring us to listen and discern the voice of the Almighty Father Yahuah, which comes in Yahusha's name. And we will see a gathering of mass numbers. And it's not going to be about saying, you have to have this much money, they have to have that much money. It's not going to be about building a community that look like the suburbs in the U.S., or suburbs in some of these other developed cities throughout the world. The way of life for Yashar'al and this final exodus will be much different than what is being sold to you. So ask questions. What's the plan? Is it written down? Did it not say in the scriptures with the vision, write it down? Don't push away the person with the questions. Answer the questions. Tell the truth. If you don't have an answer, if you haven't given thought to that, tell the truth. Questions to ask, thresholds. How many families can it be in that spot of land? Who controls that land? Don't believe when they say nobody owns that land. I guarantee you every piece of land on this planet, there's some entity that claims ownership. They don't say, well, we don't own that land. You think throughout the continent of Africa there's pieces of land and you have these leaders and rulers and no one is going to claim ownership? Do you believe that the promised land can be taken from Abba Yahuah? Think again. Think again. Prepare and ready your mind, my brothers and sisters. Ask questions. And if you use all your resources on this plan because it sounds well and good, when the time comes, maybe you may not have the resources that you're supposed to have, that you're supposed to give or contribute to the true gathering of Yashar'al, to the true promised land. Pray and watch, O Yashar'al. Corrections are coming. Choosing the wrong guides and counselors to navigate through these end times is not a wise thing. Ask what is meant in the 26th chapter of Genesis, in the 44th chapter of Jeremiah, when it was emphasized, don't go into Egypt, don't go into Mitzrayim. The Almighty Father do not want us going anywhere but to the promised land, and when that time comes, we will know it. It's not going to be beamed up. Some people say, well, you're waiting too late. Why isn't there discussions about how to vet the guides, how to vet counselors? And what I mean by vet is examine. What questions to ask? Instead of pushing away the people with questions. The scriptures encourage us to seek and we'll find. The scriptures encourage us to examine. So those who stray away from questions and examination, come away from them, Yashar'al. At least you find yourself facing pain and regret. It's better for a person to say, I have a plan. And when you ask a question, they say, I don't know. Sometimes by getting to that point where they don't know, may be an open hand or door to a piece of that puzzle of the plan that they have. But if they want to make it look like they're leading, they got it down packed, they're making it happen, and they don't want you to ask questions, or they're calling you a hater or dissuader, you might want to rethink whether that's the group you want to be around. You see, on social media, there's so many guides and counselors that have administrators that will boot a person from just asking a question. They assume, because there are those who ask questions, rhetorical questions, because they want to argue with you. I'm not talking about such people as that. If they ask a question and you're not sure if they asking a rhetorical question or want to argue, ask them, are you asking me the question because you believe you have an answer? Or are you asking me a question because you genuinely want to see what my answer is? Because so many people do jump out there with rhetorical questions, meaning that they already got an answer, administrators and sometimes guards push away the anointed and the obedient because they didn't lump them up with those who want to be argumentative. There's a difference between argumentative. There's a difference between good rhetorical questions versus bad. We must learn how to be as iron sharpened iron, my brothers and sisters, to get clarity on what needs to happen. Some of you might wonder, did it really take all this? But I believe somebody got the fullness of this message and then some. To you, my brother, my sister, my family, rise up. Let us know that we are as guides and counsel to one another. There will be those among us, my brothers and sisters, those who possess the title of guides and counsel, and there will be those by their actions will produce the fruit to contribute towards our guidance and our counsel. This does not mean for us to ignore the living directions from the Spirit of Yahuah, which comes as His word, Yahusha, working in us and through us. And I'm not saying ignore the titles, but what I am saying is don't just think because the person said, I'm a guide for Yashar'al or I'm a counselor, that there isn't more. There's much more. We will learn how to interchange words and instructions with one another as the Almighty Father directs. Yashar'al, my brothers, my sisters, if you listen from beginning to end, I pray that this stirred your spirit, at the very least cause you to think about it, pray about it. Have some discussions. Sometimes I say that to encourage us to have discussions about guides and counsels. What is being said? What is being directed? Let us see, are we on the same page? Sometimes this helps flush out the pure in heart. Seek to identify visions, plans, direction that is being given and provided. I pray more than anything, O Yashar'al, that we grow to discern the living voice of Yahuah, which comes in Yahusha's name, make wise decisions, and grow with a ready mind, body, to respond to living orders. On that note, thank you for your patience. If you care to subscribe, like, share. If you care to plant a seed to help support and see where that seed leads, my cash tag is White Rose Family. And I will thank you in advance to those who have give and those who will give. This doesn't mean that because I ask that I never give. In due season, all that is required of us coming together during these end times will come to be. With that said, be encouraged, my brother, my sister, my family. Shalom.